You would think that that would be very needed and wanted. What? Oh, yeah. It's not just you want to be here, you want to be in the big city.
We could always take two and put them next to each other.
I think for the sake of it, it's kind yeah, our daughter in Norfolk, so right near DC. I don't know if she was on it. And she.
All right, it is 1 o'clock. We're going to call this special meeting to order. I will call the roll. Hoffman.
Here.
Thurman.
Here.
Holding. I am President Keiser is absent. We do have a quorum present. The board will have to determine, I can moderate the meeting, but the board will have to make that motion to allow me their offers.
Don't I say the pledge, or we don't need to?
No, we need a moderator for the meeting.
Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion that our clerk will moderate this meeting, please.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's say the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, as we get started today, I'll open it up for public comment. If you are going to address the board, please come to the podium and state your name for the minutes. Do you think the microphone is on? Ready to go? You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Go ahead.
Okay.
You can tap it. Yeah, you're on.
It's on? Okay.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay. I am offering support for Karen Dodge. I am offering support for Tana Baldwin as the Bear Creek Township Supervisor. I am not a judge. I'm not on a board or commission or involved with a housing authority. I'm simply a resident of Bear Creek Township who has observed Tana's commitment to our community. Tana understands the significance of this appointment and the responsibility of succeeding a supervisor who served the township for more than 30 years. She would approach the position with respect for that history while focusing on the values important to township residents. One of those values is transparency. Tana believes residents should be informed and included in local government, even when work schedules and other commitments make participation difficult. Since July 2025, she undertook the effort to videotape township and other public meetings and created the Eye on Emmett YouTube channel so the public can access and review meetings. These recordings provide context and public access that written minutes alone cannot always capture. Public officials themselves have acknowledged the value of these recordings and expressed appreciation for her efforts. Tana has consistently demonstrated a willingness to research township ordinances, policies, and practices. She does not simply raise concerns, she often proposes solutions. She values facts, data, and accuracy, recognizing that sound decisions require reliable information. She understands that today's decisions can have long-term consequences for the township and its residents. Having lived in Bear Creek Township for decades, Tana has witnessed firsthand the changes that have shaped our community. She knows the township's history, understands the challenges ahead, and appreciates the importance of balancing growth, preservation, and responsible governance. When she believes a proposal is not in the public's best interest, she is willing to speak up and advocate for change. Examples of this include the poverty exemption, review of the sewer ordinance, and master plan input. Tana also understands that successful leadership requires collaboration, public trust, and respect for differing viewpoints. She recognizes that important decisions should not be made in isolation, but through engagement with residents and fellow officials. While she has not served under the supervision of an elected official, she has earned the respect of residents and public officials alike through her willingness to work together, listen, and engage constructively with others. Finally, Tana's dedication to local government is demonstrated by her long-standing involvement. She has attended township meetings since 2006, giving her nearly 2 decades of firsthand knowledge of township issues, processes, and decision-making. Some of the rest of you have been at those meetings years ago as well. Tana has shown that leadership is not dependent on a title. She has invested her own time researching issues, attending meetings, documenting public proceedings, and sharing information with residents. Almost there. She has chosen to be actively involved because she cares about the future of Bear Creek Township, not because it is required of her. So I fully support her as a candidate for the supervisor position. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. I'm Jonathan Shield. I'm at 506 North Division. I've been a township resident for about 29 years. I have a bachelor's degree in public administration. I have a business accounting degree. I have been director of planning and zoning at the city of Charlevoix for numerous years. I am a business owner with a consulting group that supports government administrative areas with 7 different jurisdictions in northern Michigan. I've been doing that for over 27 years. I was an elected county commissioner of Emmett County, zoning administrator for numerous townships in Charlevoix County. I sat on the planning commission of Bear Creek Township, of the city of Petoskey, and at the county, Emmett County. I have administered community development block grant, homeowner rehabilitation programs, and oversaw construction of numerous low-income multifamily and single-family housing for both private and nonprofit developers. Reason I'm telling you this today is that I attempted to follow the rules that this board set up and sent my resume and application in on at 12:38 on Wednesday, May 27th. When I saw the agenda package come out and with my name not on it, I knew there was a problem. I contacted Emma. We tried to work through that for a short while, and literally and I figured it was a glitch in technology. And about a half hour ago, I found that was true, and most of it being on my end. My Gmail account went to your old email, and which I hadn't used since 2024 when the emails had changed. I believe your server is still accepting those emails, which is why it didn't kick back saying undeliverable. So I believe there's a little bit of responsibility on both sides, and maybe more on mine. With that said, I would ask that because I attempted to follow those rules, believe I did what I was supposed to, that you would accept my application and as a board, accept my application and allow me to be part of this process. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments? Carla? Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Testing. Hear me?
The supervisor's statutory duties were posted with the job opening. We all know the job requires much more. Supervisor is an important position. giving direction to the very essence of Bear Creek Township's future and its residents. That direction is critical. Over Denny Keiser's years as supervisor, we talked often, civil discussion, both pro and con views. Recently, however, the direction he was leading the township often differed greatly from my view. His resignation plans were unknown to me when we talked of many township topics for 2 hours just the day before handing in his resignation letter. I begged him that day, as I had many times in years past, resign from the housing board that he sits on for County Commissioner David White's own housing nonprofit corporation. I saw that position as, if not a conflict of interest, at the very least, it had the appearance of conflict of interest. The direction forward? Any supervisor's political connections and influences need to cease. Like 1, coddling developers through the planning and zoning process. 2, promoting brownfield TIFs at existing taxpayers' expense. 3, appointing to township committees anyone such as realtors standing to gain from their own decisions. 4, promoting the extension of sewer and water at taxpayers' expense for the benefit of developers. And 5, especially cease being invested with organized community groups promoting their own political leanings. Choose a supervisor who will lead all township residents in another direction from the present. Someone who will preserve our unique township as stated in a previous township master plan from which the present planners have strayed. It described, quote, the valuable natural and historical resources that need to be protected and explained the role of private property relative to public interests, unquote. The present planner states manage growth or growth will manage us. The present planner, but sadly, perhaps because he is associated with various groups that expect him to promote housing, high density style, one of his key takeaways in our 2026 draft master plan is, quote, depending on location, new and larger housing developments will likely require the expansion of public water and sewer infrastructure. Your decision to choose a supervisor with vision in another direction without outside influences will make all the difference in the character of Bear Creek Township, not just for the present, but forever. As poet Robert Frost wrote, 2 roads diverge in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all of the difference.
Thank you, Carla. Any other public comments?
Hi, Jackie Hall. I still want to reiterate, I believe that there should be a special election. I agree, you need to have an interim supervisor until that's held. I think the residents and taxpayers of Bear Creek Township deserve a voice. Second, as far as the posting, when I clicked the many clicks to get to the advertisement, I wondered why didn't it say that you needed to be a resident of Bear Creek Township? I also think that it was so hard to find the advertisement that we didn't get as many applications as maybe we should have, and maybe we should extend that. I also think, you know, if someone, I reviewed the applicants, and I think like if they knew that if you're combining the supervisor position with the assessor position, we're talking about a totally different league of applicants. And we're talking about a $120,000 position versus a $26,000 position. That could have made a huge difference as well. My other thing is, I remember in a meeting that, and listening to the man that said he applied and it didn't go through. I remember Denny or Emma saying in one of the meetings that a lot of your email goes to spam and that we should make sure we follow up. So with that being said, maybe you need to extend the application process. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, a couple weeks ago at the last meeting, I brought up the nepotism policy, and I would like to be added to the agenda at the next board meeting, so you guys can actually have a conversation about that. I feel like a lot of us talk about things and we have questions, and you guys sit and you listen, but no one responds, and no one follows up and talks about it. So if I could be added to that agenda, so you guys could have a conversation about that, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Nate Hall, Bear Creek Township. I would like to know why this is important that you're gonna pick our supervisor today, most likely. I hope that you extend for reasons that my wife just said, but why a special meeting at 1 o'clock? We have asked you passionately to have them in the evening. Look at how many people are here in this room at 1 o'clock on a Monday. I am soaked in diesel fuel, gagging probably everybody in this section because I barely made it in here. And I wanted to be in here, and I just don't think I just don't understand. And I'm hoping that, that you guys, I hope that you listen, you're not listening to us. I know that it's all about transparency, and hopefully we get there someday, but I just don't understand this 1 o'clock thing. So I'm super confused, because if this same meeting was tonight at 6 or 7, there wouldn't be a chair to be had in this room, because I know my son wanted to attend this. He's stuck at work. We couldn't afford to close the office, we had customers coming, and I think it's just a tad bit unfair that we want to be all a part of this process, and we're not being allowed to be a part of it. And to go back to what Jackie said, I had a conversation, Garrett was there, and he is my witness, with Denny, where an email was sent to Denny, and I'm sure it did go to spam. That was how it was explained that it could have happened to it. And if that did happen, any applicant deserves to be heard. I don't, as long as they live in Bear Creek Township, I just think that it has to be a fair process. And I don't know what the hurry is. That's another thing. You guys have like hit the gas and we're like in dragster mode, moving here to get this moving, and we have time. Because as far as I know, you haven't even accepted Denny's resignation yet, and even when you do, we have 45 days, so why can't we do this in a couple weeks? It's just my thought, and I hope that you guys are at least listening to us and gonna respond to us.
Anybody else? Public comment? Go ahead.
I don't know if I have to walk over there, but I would like to see a special election also happen for those that are applying for the supervisor job, but the taxpayer, Bear Creek, you could do that. My name's Ryan Flynn.
Any other public comment to be brought before the board? Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, Brian Bates. I'm just really going to echo the concern about rushing this through and the opportunity for a special election. I'm especially concerned that a seemingly abundantly qualified applicant is in the audience, tried to apply, followed up, and we haven't taken any efforts to hear their application. I've been just, one of my life mantras is to sort of presume positive intentions. And I'm just trying to figure out why we wouldn't accommodate, as far as I read the packet, there's only 2 people on the agenda. I don't know why we wouldn't accommodate a 3rd candidate. I don't even know how hard that would be. It'd be the same questions. So I would implore you to consider adding that applicant today or rescheduling this on the May 12th meeting. This board discussed this conversation happening at the meeting on the evening of June 3rd, but something changed between now and then that moved it to today at 1 o'clock. I don't know what changed on this board's mind from then to now, but it does feel like June 3rd in the evening would be a much better time slot. The other thing, there's a lot of us who don't want to see more government, we want less government, and I think one of the best parts of government is having an election. We do have time on our side with this, and I think an election would be really fair to everybody involved. And then specifically on the applicants as presented in the packet, I do have concerns about one applicant's lack of experience managing people. This is an extremely important position. Members of this board and this township recently have called my integrity into question completely inaccurately and untruthfully in township business. That is a personal concern I have that I don't need to air in this space. But I do have serious concerns about the professionalism and integrity of one of the applicants this evening, it's not this evening, today. Mr. Muir is put together an application saying they want more transparency. Unfortunately for me, I've had a very cordial relationship with Mr. Muir throughout, and that's great. My concern is some of the things I've observed over the years I've been able to look past because I've seen other good sides. I'm very concerned about this getting escalated so quickly with the lack of experience. I sit on the planning commission, as some of you know, at the county level, and I've personally witnessed Mr. Muir texting planning commissioners during meetings, giggling in the back room, giggling on group threads with other township employees to influence the outcome of a case. And I find that to be so insulting to the integrity of the citizens of this township and this county that somebody would think they could operate with such impunity that they would openly communicate with their peers. I find that very concerning, and I've also had other planning commissioners concerned that their job was at stake if they did not vote how this township needed them to vote. And shortly after they voted not the right way, they were terminated from this township. And I find these actions, I want to presume positive intentions, but I really think an election is going to be more fair for this because I'm concerned that we're rushing into this and it's going to be a lot harder to undo this than it is to do it the right way right now. So I would implore you to consider the other applicant, please. And I would implore you to consider a special election because this township has a lot at stake and we do not need to rush any decisions.
Adam Slowinski, Bear Creek resident. A lot of things I was going to say have already been said. I do want to reiterate those things because I think the importance of this position, I'm not really understanding why so many special meetings are being called. I think this is 11 or 12 this year. I'm not understanding, again, what was already said. The Denny's resignation hasn't been accepted yet. We still have 45 days after that. So I'm not really sure why this is being ramrodded through. I just don't. It's a very important position. And I think that it needs to go through the gates that require it to be, to hold up to the positions. I don't know, I guess I don't understand these 1 o'clock meetings. I don't understand 3 days before a meeting, an emergency meeting is called. What's the emergency here? What's the hurry? Why are we doing this? Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Mary Wilson of Bear Creek Township. I would also like to reiterate that we should have a special election. I don't feel that at least 2 of you work closely with one of the applicants, that it seems as transparent and as fair-minded as I believe that you all are. And so I really think we should turn it back to the people. There's quite a few more who will be voting than 4 people. So although I know statutorily it is your duty, but it's also our duty to have someone that we would trust and I think a special election would be the way to go. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Public comment? Last call. All right, we are closing the public comment period. I do also want to share with the board a piece of correspondence that was received this morning because it falls in the vein of public comment from Mary Wilson, and I'll pass this around just so you guys can see it. It is a letter of support for town development. So again, piece of correspondence goes with public comment and wanted to share that. With that, that brings us to our business to be brought before the board. I guess I'll kind of lay out what we have here, and we can also address Mr. Shields' concern. So we received 16 responses to the job posting. The packets are there on the desk if anyone wants to see all 16 responses are there. These are 16 individuals who their response was received by the deadline set before the board, which was 4 p.m. on Wednesday, the 27th of May. Out of those 16 responses, 13 did not meet the statutory requirements to be a registered voter. So there are statutory requirements to fill this position. Of the remaining 3, 1 of which did not fill out the application, which was a requirement of the board. So the 2 applicants or the 2 responses who met the statutory requirements and submitted an application by the deadline, or we received the application by the deadline, we scheduled interviews with. That's how we landed today. To address Mr. Shields' concern, where'd you go, Jonathan? There he is. He and I did have a conversation later in the week, last week. At this point, I still have not received his application. We did switch our emails from a .com email to a .gov email in December of 2021, so it's been about 5 years. We had email forwarding set up for quite some time, and then, at some point dropped that. So if someone else now uses that .com domain, that would be outside of our control. So it would be up to the board if you wanted to consider that application, but I do not have it received as of this moment.
Emma, I hate to interrupt, but I think it's very important. I did offer to bring that over to you personally, and you said you could not accept it, so I wanted to make that very clear.
Correct. I was given the authority by the board to post this job,
Absolutely.
and so that's your, you were allowed to bring that to public comment. So before we go to interviews, if the board wants to have a conversation about that, or Joel, if you have any way in on the process, or entertaining that application, we would welcome that. Or I would welcome from the board as well.
It is the board's process, and the board can largely do what it determines to be appropriate here. There was a deadline. You see deadlines in things like this for submissions. You see it in bid openings and things like that. It does not sound as if it was technically met. 2 applicants did meet it. My understanding is that they handed it in personally, maybe emailed it as well, but there are ways to confirm whether something has been received or not. That did not occur here. It's within the board's power to do what it wishes. I would just caution the board that once you start making exceptions on irregularities that aren't really due to the townships, and my understanding is the spam folders have been checked. It's not that it was routed to a spam folder or somewhere else, but once you start doing that, you have potentially 16 others that may have irregularities that they would like to consider waived as well. So again, I leave it to the board. I would say the board's process was that it was as of 4 p.m. on a date certain, and is proceeding on that basis. If it wants to make any type of exception to that, it could do that. It also did hear, public comment, some of the qualifications as well. So, the board could act on that as well if it wanted to. But again, it's really up to the board with its process. It would be making an exception to the process that it's set for.
Thank you, Joel. Board members would look to you for direction.
Do you have copies of your resume?
I have everything here. May I approach?
Yes. Ask the chairman, I guess.
received an application as of 1/29 on June 1st. It would be up to the board to entertain this, application. I will just make a note of clarity, on this receipt, there are 2 emails by which this was sent to. One is clerk@bearcreektownship.org, which is not an email account we have ever used. The second is clerk@bearcreektownship.gov, which is also not an account we have ever used. Ours is mi.gov. So, it did not get sent to the bearcreektownship.com previous email that we previously used. And again, I would ask the board if you would like to entertain this or not. If you would like to entertain this applicant, we can add that as an interview, but I would want a board decision or direction to do that, because that's not the decision of one particular member of the board.
Madam Chairman, can I ask our council?
Yes.
Joel, if we were to do that, how much of a precedence then would we be setting for future applicants and jobs and stuff?
I don't know, I think it's fact specific enough.
This
that
is
it wouldn't
specific
necessarily
enough.
be, everybody always makes an exception, so.
I know.
But, I don't know what could be raised potentially among other respondents.
Sure.
Who may not have met the letter of the application process.
I do feel that since the applicant does live across the street from the township, it wouldn't have been hard to bring it in by the date if he really, if he didn't get just to make sure that it was in on time.
I would love to be able to hear what Connie just said.
I said the applicant lives across the street from the township, and if that was a concern that he got it in on time, maybe he could have dropped it off, like the other 2 did.
Tom, you have any thoughts?
My thought is on this, I believe Mr. Shield tried to do it correctly, send it to the right spots. He's here today to possibly offer up an interview. I understand that was his intention. I think with this situation, yeah, he could have walked it across the street. I think he thought he had 2 different addresses here, and I'm not a tech guy, but I understand somewhat how the addresses work. We're here today to listen to applicants and take some interview questions. I guess he's a qualified voter, is that correct? So he meets that qualification. That's a huge one. So, 29 years of living here and voting here. So, I wouldn't foresee, we've got 2 on the application period today, a 3rd would not, in my judgment, we'd be okay with it, so. I'd be willing to take that's my thought on it. I think he tried to do it right, but was done wrong. But
I would look for a motion from the board one way or another.
I make that motion, we accept Mr. Shields' application for supervisor position, Bear Creek Township.
Do I have support?
June 1st.
Do I have support? Last call for a second on the motion.
I guess I don't see the problem. I guess I'll support the motion.
Motion by Tom, second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Joel, should we take a roll call vote?
Yeah.
Calling the roll. Yearman?
Yes.
Golding?
No?
Hoffman?
Yes,
And it's a no from me.
so it fails.
Or a tie vote, which would fail in this
Yep.
instance, Joel?
It did not obtain majority support, so it is.
Motion fails. We will move on with the agenda as presented. So first order of business would be to start our interviews and the interview process, or just the process in general. Ms. Baldwin, would you like to start? Thank you for submitting your application.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So everyone knows I'm Tana Baldwin, and I have lived in Bear Creek Township my entire life. And I would be happy to take questions from you, and I think this is a very important role, so.
Would you like to share a little more about yourself with us and the public before we start?
Certainly.
Excuse me, but, yeah, Trippers, would I suggest that maybe we offer a desk and a seat to our applicants?
Yes.
Because it could be extended, and I don't want anybody to feel as if they need to rush because they're standing at the podium. I'm happy.
No, that's a great idea, thank you.
There's another desk over there, I think easier.
I'm gonna go out around this.
Point of information also, should the other applicants be out of the room for fairness?
I believe it's a public meeting and all applicants are welcome to stay, but Joel can shed further light on that.
Do I need a microphone over here?
Yeah, maybe just take it with you. The benefit of the mobile mic. Thank you. Yep.
If it starts picking up on both, just turn off.
Joel heard that question.
Yeah,
The question was,
was
does the
raised.
board have the authority to exclude a person from the meeting who is another applicant?
Yes.
It does not. It is a public meeting, absent breach of the peace. Members of the public are entitled to be here. It is an open session. I know that it is somewhat different than you might find for a job interview or something like that. I understand efforts were made to potentially schedule different times for applicants, and that did not seem to be of interest for either applicant. On that basis, I think it's, everybody sees all the applications, which is different from a private setting as well. And in short, the answer is no, you cannot exclude somebody from on that basis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Donna.
Okay. So yes, I am Tana Baldwin. I have lived in Bear Creek Township, as you can see in my documentation, my whole life. And I have been attending meetings. Actually, Karen's wrong. I think the first one I ever spoke at was in 2003. And when you're young, that is not something that you engage in all the time generally. And so in the last year and a half, I have been attending all of the meetings, and I'm not sure that I've missed any of them. As to my background, I'll start with, these are all in the packet. Did you want me to go through all of that?
Just whatever you'd like to share as introductory to start.
Okay. So I do live in Bear Creek Township. I have a husband and a daughter, and we have lived in our current home for 24 years maybe. And I have extensive education, and in my work, I have done a lot with, I have done budgeting, I have managed people, I have done a lot with infrastructure, and I do a lot of problem solving for businesses, and I ensure that they have the tools that they need to get their jobs done. So I think that is probably one of my strengths, is seeing what needs to be done and figuring out how to make sure that it happens the way that it needs to and it's supposed to, and doing it in economical manners, because you can throw a lot of money at something and not get what you really want. So I think that's really important. As a supervisor, I think one of the things that people have been harping on a lot is transparency, and I don't know if it's an intentional problem, but I think you tend to get very comfortable with what you do, and it's hard to remember that because the public engages and disengages, they don't always understand everything that's going on. And sometimes it's really helpful to make sure you're remembering that you might have people who haven't heard it all before. And I think that's really important for a supervisor to encourage that kind of excess information. And sometimes it might seem redundant, but it can really help people understand what's happening. I also think that a lot of times, and this board is probably better, but you see on planning commissions and other places, a lot of silence. And the people have a real right to understand how you're deliberating. They need to know what's going on in your mind, because that's part of their right as citizens, to understand how you are coming to the decisions that you are voting on. And so I think a supervisor can help encourage and ask questions. As anytime I have ever taught, one of the most important things I have ever taught people to do is question everything. Because only if you question everything are you going to be able to get to the conclusions that you need to. You've got to really think through things, and you can't do that if you're not asking questions. So I really always try to encourage people to ask questions. I guess I'll stop and let you ask some questions.
Thank you, that's a great introduction. Board members, I welcome questions.
I've got a couple questions. Just some stuff. What really interests you in this role, this position, as a supervisor for Bear Creek Township? What's your interest?
I really think that guiding the township is really important, particularly now. We've seen a lot of changes. And, you know, Denny had been in the position for 30 years, and we were a significantly different township back then. We had probably half of the population that we do now. And I think we're at a different place, and I think we're still changing. So I hope some guidance, and definitely, again, really making sure that the people are involved and understand what's happening. And I think those are some of my main interests. I'm very interested in fiscal responsibility, as you may have heard at many meetings. I am very concerned about how taxpayer money is being spent and making sure that we're getting the most out of it. That people aren't paying tax money in that they don't really need to, okay? So I think those are probably some of the main areas.
And a follow-up to that, as I read through all your resume and so forth, you touched earlier on infrastructure. Can you give me an example of what you have been involved with in infrastructure? As we are, that's a buzzword here, as you all know, infrastructure.
My area of infrastructure has always been information technology. So you're talking about, I mean,
IT.
you're talking about wiring, you're talking about hardware, you're talking about software, you're you know, all of the different things that go into that.
That's kind of what I thought, but it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a question. I know that you advocated for splitting the township in half. And what is your plan to accomplish? What would the townships look like?
Okay, first of all, I don't want to say that I have advocated for it. I have advocated for examining it to determine whether or not it would be beneficial. And I can't actually determine that without a much deeper dive than I'm able to do at this time. I don't know if it would be financially feasible, because I don't know what the allocation of taxable value is. I would really need to be able to sit down and see. You know, we're a big township. We have a lot of value, and at some point, the city may decide that they want some of it. So we have several avenues that we may want to see. There's a lot to look at to see how it would go. There are parts of the township, I think, that could be protected by splitting it. There are also but that might not be good for both halves, and I don't know. I would really have to examine it further, but I was encouraging everyone else to look at it and see what you think, if you see any downfalls. Like, that's one of those discussion things where until you really start talking about it, you don't know whether or not it's good or bad, and someone else may have a reason that it would be bad. And I would really like to hear those things.
So the county commissioners, I know you went to the county commissioners, and I don't know what you asked them. I didn't watch, I guess I should have watched the meeting. What did you ask them for?
I just put that idea out there because they are the people who would ultimately have to vote on it, because that's how it happens. And I just put the idea out there, and it's just to consider it. Consider and think about it.
The one downfall that I kind of researched is the millage for the sewer, and which doesn't affect that, but the millage for the township, this new township hall, if you had half of the township, whoever got stuck over on that side would get Spring Lake Park and the old hall and still have to pay for this. So I don't know how exactly that would come out.
I do think from what I've looked at that there are ways to work that out, if that became the some, and that is one of the issues to look at for sure. But it looks like there were some agreement type things that you could do to work that out. We'd have to look at it a lot more closely, but that's definitely a concern.
Okay. So the poverty level, we did mirror what the city is. We did come up. But if we went any farther, I know you're advocating for the poverty level to go up, and that would bring less, it could bring less income in for the township, the county, the schools, everything. On the millage side of stuff, I don't know the total details, but do you have a formula for replacing that income, lost income?
I don't have a formula for replacing it, and that's what I talked to Denny about, is we really have to look at those numbers and see what that would even be. You know, this year we got 2 applications and that's it. I think the year before weren't there 3, so we actually went down in applications. And it's set very low. I mean, if you compare it to AMI, it's probably down around 20%. 20% AMI is about where we have the poverty set. So I think there's room to move up. You have to actually really look at the numbers to see how far. And you probably have to do it incrementally a little bit at a time to see what you could handle and manage. But I'd surely like to help individual homeowners first before doing things at a much higher AMI for developers, because it really doesn't seem very fair.
You talk a lot about transparency, and what would you do different to make things more transparent?
Like I said, I think that really getting people to deliberate and talk in meetings about what they're thinking and why, I think that would really help with transparency. Because I know a lot of times people are shaking their head, they just don't understand why. Why is this being done? And I think part of the problem with the why is that nobody's saying the why. They might vote, but they're not explaining why they're voting the way they are voting. I think that's a real issue for people.
Can you tell me, or us as a board and audience, how, and thank you for being here too, I should have started that first, thanks. Tell me about a difficult situation in your work that you helped resolve and how you overcame that with employees.
With employees. Well, I've had difficult situations where we've had to let employees go, obviously. And I've had conflicts. Now, I will say that team building exercises, I have employed in the past, and I tend to do those, they would not be appropriate for this board, because generally it was with a younger crowd. So, we had a lot of tension, working at the college on the help desk. The, employees were not getting along well at all. They worked in a very small, enclosed environment, and there's starting to be a lot of tension. So we did some team building exercises that ended up in a water balloon fight, and really it broke the ice, and it really improved morale overall and how people got along. So, I don't.
Good, thanks. Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So, we've heard, over the past three meetings maybe, we've heard a lot of the audience asking about nepotism. And when I study nepotism in government, it's about if I was to appoint, or the township hires, if we appoint somebody that's gonna get political gain money-wise, or if I'm gonna get some money out of it, and I haven't found anybody that we've appointed ever that actually made much money on it. I don't know what exactly the problem is. I was thinking about it though. There are two people that have, would like to get, I know on the different boards, I know one of them has written a letter, and I don't know, husband and wife. I would not be able to possibly appoint them, because it would be nepotism, because they're the one's my relative. But other than that, I cannot think of anything. Do you have any insights into, what do you think nepotism in government is?
Generally, nepotism is related people, so that is, generally fairly closely related. I don't know the relationships of all the people that work for the township, so I can't speak too much to if there is any. I don't know. I do think there is some perceived problems, even if it's not with just Bear Creek, but if you're integrating Bear Creek in the county and you have, closely related people who are doing both, and there may be some conflict there.
Okay, but I've thought about it. There's possibly one individual, but all he gets is $60 per diem. He's never made any money. So, but I just don't see there's a problem with nepotism. Now, if and I don't know why we would want to maybe have a discussion at the board level other than here, why there's no nepotism politically for any money or any gain that I can think of much.
I think you would have to talk to the people who know more about these relationships than I do.
Right, thank you.
I have one last question. You talked about the past 30 years. I think we've moved from the 1,500 people or whatever,
Yeah.
stayed to 6,000. I think, we've been managing the 6,000 plus pretty good in the 6 years I've been here. What is your plans for the future? You stayed past, what's your future plans? What would you, in general, foresee? You got 2 years, say, until 2028, and this position will be elected position. So, 2 years, do you have
Anything specific that we can do? Well, obviously, we have projects. We have projects to finish. That obviously is the first thing that needs to be done. And you have been very heavily involved in this project, for instance. So I'm sure that there's still a lot that needs to happen there. I guess if you're trying to say what is different, I mean, projects like this is hugely different than what we would have done 30 years ago. This was a big project. I'm not sure or probably many of the other people that have been listening to how the project went, really understand why it was handled the way it was. And maybe there's some procedural things I don't understand that I would like to find out, because I think that it could have been smoother. And I think that it would benefit all of us to have, fewer change orders and all of these different things that were constantly going on. And I think it's, I don't know if it's a matter of professionalism, but I think we're at a point where we're large enough. I mean, this is the biggest township in Emmett County, but it's also, I think, in the top 25% of counties statewide. So it's a big township, and I think there may be some room for a little bit more professionalism in how some of these projects are approached. You know, it's not 30 years ago where, and you know, I was thinking about, you know, am I physically able to do this job? And I think, oh, look at the things Denny was doing. And I think that they had talked about going out and putting out things along the road for the bike trail, and they were putting the dock in at the Jones Landing and things like that. And I'm thinking, that's really not what we should be doing at this point. You know, both from a time management standpoint and from a risk management standpoint, I think we have to run in a bit more professional manner.
Thank you.
The supervisor is the chief assessing officer. Would you like to share what your approach to assessing would be in Bear Creek Township?
To tell you the truth, I'm not sure. There's a whole lot I need to learn about assessing. I have watched assessing, I've had assessing explained to me, and I really can't speak too heavily to it just yet, because it's something I will have to learn. But I have always been up to the challenge, and I become very obsessed with things, and I will find out everything that I need to know, and I will do it very quickly.
Tell me a little bit about much of the supervisor role, in my opinion, comes with relationships. So, you know, we do lots of projects, to your point, but even outside of projects, just regular business contracts, agreements, things like that, that are partnerships with other municipalities, sometimes nonprofits. Tell me about relationships that you have or things that you think you could bring to the table when it came to relationships.
I think relationships are really important. I also think it's important to make sure that relationships are not lopsided, that someone is getting more out of that relationship than what you are getting back out of it. I guess, you know, we've all had a lot of questions about the sheriff's department contract and wanting to know that we are getting what we are giving. I think that I have the ability to look at those things very clearly and objectively. And I think that probably some of those relationships could be better negotiated, or other options could be looked at.
Thank you. I have one last question. Does anybody else have anything? I guess my last question would be, as an elected official, it's above and beyond a full-time job. You know, it is a full-time job. We have an office, and we are happy to be a full-service township that provides those office hours to residents. But especially when it comes to being a supervisor, I mean, we all experience, you know, meeting somebody in the grocery store and talking about township business, or, you know, things outside of office hours. But especially when it comes to the supervisor role, that comes into play. You know, it's a holiday weekend, it's 4th of July, and someone calls because the Jones Landing bathroom is plugged up, you know? The person that's getting that phone call is the supervisor. How do you think you would approach that? You know, I always made the joke, Denny at 25/7, he worked 25/7, he found the extra hour, and nobody's going to be Denny, nobody's gonna fill his shoes. But the next supervisor is going to have to be somebody who's willing to be the on-call representative for the township. So tell me a little bit about how you would approach that.
Well, obviously, you do have to set some kind of boundary somewhere, but, you know, I'm available. So even now, I get calls, they could last an hour or 2 hours from people wanting to talk about the township, all right, or now. And I'm not even an elected official at this point. So, you know, I think you just roll with it, and if that's what you're going to be doing, then you have to be all in.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm
Tom?
Good.
Connie? Lastly, before we close, Tana, is there anything else you would like to share with us or the public?
I would like to thank all of the people who did come here today and took the time out to come here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I also, along with many of the other people here, really would prefer the people to elect the supervisor. And I understand that if that can't be done, I am going to put myself here because I think that at least for the next 2 years, if that is what I need to do, that it would make sure that we had a little bit of the democratic process, because I'm willing to be that fill-in person. And it's not to say that I wouldn't continue doing it, but I would only probably do it if nobody else wanted it at all, because I really think that you need a clean slate to be, I don't want somebody already here who then everybody just elects because that's the person that's already sitting here, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're all ready and able to move on to our next interview? Yeah? Mr. Muir?
I'll also take advantage of the seat, if that's okay. Thanks for warming it up, Tom.
Thank you for coming and being our second applicant. I guess we'll open in the same way, if you'd like to introduce yourself to us, to the public, share anything introductory to begin.
Garrett Muir. I think the board knows me pretty well. I've been providing administrative support for quite a few years now. I think a lot of the people in the audience know me, whether they know me well or not. I'd be happy to discuss with any of them some of those concerns I've noted here. Lived in the township just about 6 years, 5 years, 6 years. Live right across the street, so I've been watching this building go up with anticipation. I'm very excited for it to be coming to an end. I think that there might be a good way to start this conversation is, it's no secret that I was Denny's deputy. And with that, as an employee, I did a lot of things that was asked of me as his deputy. And Denny never asked me to do anything that I ever disagreed with morally or ethically. But I believe that as an employee, it is your duty to do your job. I would like the board to know, and for the audience to know, and for the residents, that I am not Denny, and there's good and bad with that. I don't think anybody could ever fill his shoes, but I do have differing opinions on certain things. Some might be fiscal, some might be administrative, but I'd like the board to really approach this as Garrett Muir, resident applying, and not Garrett Muir, deputy supervisor for Denny applying.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bring it up to the board for questions.
I have a question. So, I don't know if the audience knows, Garrett's been on the fire department, and he's done what I think is a very good, I've asked around, I've talked to a lot of people. He seems to do a wonderful job with it. He's also trained in medical, I would hope, I'll ask you this, as supervisor, statutorily, you can be still on the fire board. On the fire department. Are you gonna stay on the fire department? I hope.
I think that would be a discussion that I would have to have with Al Welsheimer, the chief.
Yeah.
Because as my duties have increased, it has been more difficult for me to go on calls during the day. I still go on as many as I can as my work schedule has allowed it. Al and I have an agreement currently that if I'm available, I will go. but it's understood that if I have meetings with residents or other stakeholders, that it wouldn't be fair for me to be leaving my position and ruining those relationships to respond to a call. The caveat with that being, working with Denny, if there was a true threat to life or property, we've worked through it. That process might look a little bit different if I'm the supervisor. So I think it'd be a good conversation to have. What ultimately might come from it, until we have that discussion, I'm not sure, but I would like to continue. I believe in service above self. I started with the fire department. Prior to moving here, I was on a rescue squad where the EMS department did car extrication. I moved here, I joined the fire department. I worked for the county as an EMT for numerous years. And I'm a firm believer that giving back to the community involves having some personal stake in the game.
Thank you.
So I'll start. Thanks again, Garrett, for being here. The first question, I'm kind of going to hit off some different questions, and so I'm saying, what interests you about this role, in this position, as Garrett Muir resident?
The people, hands down, is the best part about being in a position like this. The amount of people and the differing backgrounds that I've had the opportunity to meet, to talk with, to learn from their personal in-depth history of their family, to the buildings, to the communities, to the organizations that are all throughout. Learning everybody's backgrounds and what they've done and what they are trying to do in this township and the broader community as a whole has been truly incredible. And I think that's extremely important to continue to pursue.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else you want to wait?
No, I'll do this one. Same question basically, or same as I asked the prior applicant. What, in your role during your career, conflicts or something that you've helped resolve? And what the outcome was of that?
Very good question. As somebody working in assessment administration, conflict is a constant concern. And I think I could share examples of individual conflicts, but I think what's really important with that is that conflict de-escalation. There are numerous times where I've dealt with residents either on the phone or in person that have had concerns. We're all feeling squeezed right now. Taxes are rising, cost of living is rising. People get their tax bills and it hurts to look at. And when they call the township, when they see their tax bill, all they see is Bear Creek Township. And they call in, and it can be hot sometimes, and I get it. It can be a struggle for certain people, and that's why we have the tools for the poverty exemption. But when I receive these calls, first and foremost, everything leads to understanding. I listen to what the residents are saying. I try to truly understand what the underlying concern is. And sometimes that's all that people need, is that they just need somebody to listen to them and to hear their plight and to know that they're not alone. Other times they want action, and with that comes what are actionable items that we can move forward with. And depending on situations that a resident might be in, there are solutions that we can move forward with. But the de-escalation is the biggest part of conflict. And you have to listen to the residents, and you have to make steps towards their goals. Because there's something that, a little grain of sand in their shoe, that's causing frustrations. And it's important to not dismiss that. It's important to actually take it into consideration and figure out what I could do better as an assessor, whether it's education, examining their property more closely, doing individual walkthroughs, sending out additional letters. It really just depends on the situation. But conflict resolution is probably at its core one of the most important values that I've had to bring to the table from the assessment administration side of things.
Thank you.
I would ask the same question too. I know it's a big concern about transparency.
I'm sorry, Connie.
I'm gonna ask the same question too. I know transparency is a big topic and, what you would do different or how you would be transparent to, make the residents feel like they're being heard.
It's also a really good question, and I have been working on steps, maybe not as loudly, but attempting to bring more transparency to the township for a while now, including our website. It's been something that I've been bringing up for multiple years, and hopefully soon here we're gonna have a resolution with that. I think a lot of the difficulties with transparency stems from inefficient flow for when a resident is trying to get information that might be valuable to their situation. It can be difficult to navigate our website. From a standpoint of our meetings, and this is all in my packet, so hopefully this isn't a surprise, but I do think that the township might benefit from looking at doing 2 regularly scheduled meetings every 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, so that not as many special meetings have to be called, because it is a burden on the residents. It's a burden on the board as well when you're trying to figure out when you can meet at a last second. The township does have the ability to do that, and right now, while we have many capital projects in place that are requiring these special meetings, because things have to be addressed quickly, it can't wait a month. And those are coming to an end. Even prior to our capital projects, our meetings had quite packed agendas, and we still had occasional special meetings. So I would implore the board to consider possibly doing 2 regularly scheduled meetings in the evening, so that people can regularly schedule around them if they so choose and want to attend. And then in the event that one of the meetings is not needed due to a lack of agenda items, it would be very easy to cancel as opposed to trying to schedule around at the last second.
So one thing that Denny, at least the first 3/4 of his career, maybe 25 years, Denny went to, and this really benefited the township. His relationship with the other townships, MTA, going to, all the different, he was on the, he went to the sewer, he went to, fire board, he was on the fire board. But not only that, he went to the county meetings, he went to the road commission meetings. I mean, the list is really long, especially when the first 20 years when he was not, now he's suffering like I am kind of from meeting burnout, going to 10 meetings a week or so. But that really benefited the township. And I know you've been going to some. Can you name those that you've been going to? And the other thing is, I know that Denny had a lot of interaction with the other township, like Little Traverse with the airport and stuff. There's so much that people don't realize. The supervisor has to interact with all these other community leaders, not only government. It benefits our township so much. Do you have any words of wisdom on that?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, probably up front, I would say, I would intend to fulfill all of Denny's obligated appointments, should the board so choose to appoint me to his positions. I have been pursuing many meetings. That includes the Harbor Springs Airport Authority, which we are a member of, and Bill Dome at Little Traverse Township, he's currently the chair of. Going to the Harbor Springs Sewer Authority meetings, which Denny is currently the chair of, and that's a 7-member board for everybody involved with the Harbor Springs Sewer Authority. There's also the Fire Board, the Township Planning Commission, the Township Board, Board of Review, high-profile Planning Commission cases I have attended. There's so many meetings that pop up just randomly that aren't even necessarily an official board, but committees that might form between local governments or organizations, getting together with the planning and zoning director for projects that might be going on in Bear Creek Township, meeting with Resort Township Supervisor. Resort Township and Bear Creek are so intertwined, and it's a phenomenal working relationship. But it's so important that we maintain those relationships. And I agree with Tana that the township should not just be giving, they should be getting as well. But I would disagree a little bit because I don't think the nature of a relationship should be transactional at its core. I think sometimes you help the other fella up, and other times the other fella helps you up. It looks a little bit different when you're talking about it from a local government standpoint. But all of these meetings, they are so important, not just for getting agenda items checked off, checking a box off. They're important because they're relationships that are built. And when we're struggling with something, or we need help with an ordinance, or we need help with a policy, it's very easy to reach out to our fellow local units of government, or even other organizations, maybe nonprofits that are operating in the area, or Joel is a fantastic resource. Being able to just communicate with these groups that we work with professionally is a really big boon to the township. So I think that the next supervisor should continue going to these meetings, and I would implore the board to give that supervisor the power to go and represent the township, because without those relationships, we would be in a much worse place than we are now.
So Denny also went to the Wallen Lake Association, I'm sorry, not the Wallen Lake Association, the Wallen Lake 5 townships in Wallen Lake Association. They're loosely held, meetings on, and they're also looking at the sewer around Wallen Lake, and it does affect Bear Creek Township hugely. And I'm always kind of cautious, and we need a good person. Would you continue on with, Denny was very watchful, and they're gonna want money, and would you continue going to those meetings?
Yes, and you caught me trying to go off the top of my head all the meetings I go to. I did miss that one. I've actually, I believe, been
about 5 hours.
I've been, I think, to more of those meetings than Denny has, simply just due to scheduling errors. And you're right, sometimes, organizations, they look at the townships and they've got grand ideas, which are fantastic in principle, but sometimes the reality is not necessarily as feasible. And we do need to have the presence at those meetings. And this is even boards that you aren't on. This is attending road commission meetings so that when they're discussing one of the most critical pieces of infrastructure in our township, the bridge, without informing us, we can be there to speak up and ask them the hard questions that they haven't necessarily been answering. And same thing with the Walden Lake, Association there, the 5 townships. That is a discussion that frequents almost every time. Another one would be short-term rentals. They are pushing hard. They want an ordinance around the entire lake. And there might be some merit to it, but frankly, I'm also a big personal property rights guy. And if people are getting along well, then I don't see the need for the government to necessarily step in and tell you how to, regulate your property. And that's why it's important to attend, because sometimes these groups are making decisions that affect you, and you have to be there to speak up.
I think, Joe, you covered my question about relationships, so thank you for that. Tell me a little bit about your approach to assessing as a certified assessor, and how you see that going forward with the supervisor role, if appointed.
The supervisor is the chief assessing officer for the local unit of government that they serve. And if they are licensed, then they can be this assessor for the township. My intention would be to continue being the assessor for the township. And for a multitude of reasons, but I think probably the most important is that if you look at a lot of other townships and cities that pursue other options such as contracting, they don't have those services available for their residents. They don't have an office that their residents can go into and ask questions. You would have to, for instance, the city of Petoskey, drive to Rogers City if you wanted to speak to your assessor and ask them a question about why they assessed your property the way that they did. I firmly believe that the person that is writing out functionally what your tax bill will look like should have some skin in the game in the area. And I also believe that it's important for them to be local so that they fully understand what the township looks like. We have many, many different areas in our township. We have, regular old rural 2-acre to 10-acre lots. We have farmland. We have heavy industrial. We have commercial. And even within those, we have such unique properties. If you're not familiar, Bayview is one of a kind in the entire state. Hearthside Grove is one of a kind in the entire state. La Croche is a unique property. And there's all these little things around here, and knowing the history on property allows for better assessments. Having relationships with the residents allows for better assessments. In my entire career assessing with Bear Creek Township, I've always approached it as, hey, I'm here to make sure that things are accurate, and let's go through it together. We've tried to be as transparent as possible. When we have had conflicts, we try to resolve them and move forward. But I think very firmly believe that Bear Creek Township benefits from having a full-time assessor in the office available for residents that is intimately familiar with the area and the values. So that's how I would approach it. I would continue to be the assessor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I got conflict of interest, or not interest, in the workplace. In your resume, you were a supervisor at a prior employment. Did you ever have any conflict of interest in the workplace that you had to help resolve, and how you worked through it?
Are you asking conflict of interest or conflict resolution?
Resolution, I'm sorry.
No worries. Yes. Prior to working for Bear Creek Township, I worked in a retail facility. So if anybody hasn't worked in retail, let me just tell you that it is a petri dish of conflict that you're working through. And my tenure there was during COVID, which, again, if you're not familiar with retail during COVID, was a really unfortunate time for a lot of workers. Tensions were high. There were long hours, everybody was confused, and it created this kind of melting pot of basically conflict that was constantly bubbling over. And it could be hard sometimes because you'd be working with people, and then one day if they wake up on the wrong side of the bed, they come in, they take it out on their coworkers, or they take it out on the customers, neither of which is appropriate. While I worked at Lowe's, I was promoted a total of 6 times through the company, and I worked my way through all the way to corporate management, where I oversaw our sales for basically the entire UP and a little bit into Wisconsin, all the way down to an hour south of Grayling. And I'll skip the details from before then, but during that process, I would supervise our sales team that had their individual stores, and I would go into the stores. And if you've never worked in sales before either, it's highly competitive. So you combine this melting pot of people who are having high stress environments, and they're working on commission, and they're working in sales, and if they feel like a fellow coworker might have taken a sale from them, either by, we use the term sniping, but communicating with who their customer would have been, it creates some pretty heavy conflict. And the way that I would approach that is very similar to what I discussed before, where communication is just key. You have to get people in a room, whether it's myself and one other employee, or myself and the 2 employees, and sit down and talk and work through what the underlying issue. What's that grain of sand, that's rubbing up against your foot and your shoe? And how do we work forward? a lot of things when it comes to conflict, especially as a manager, is it's not necessarily you versus them. It's the both of you as a team versus a problem. And a lot of problems can be easily addressed if there's just communication of what the issue really is. And I think that's important, and I would pursue that as a supervisor in Bear Creek Township. It's one team, one goal. Everybody wants, I think every single person in this room, I don't want to speak for them, but I think everybody in here really wants what's best for the township. And to me, that's the one team, one goal. And whether it's a manager and their immediate underling, or you're looking at it from the lens of the entire township, it's important, and I think communication is the best way through it.
Anybody got anything else?
So, it was brought up by a 3-minute speaker today about the annexation. And for years I've been worried about the city of Petoskey trying to annex us. And I thought that a charter township would have more protection. And I talked to, of course, the legal attorney for MTA when I was down there. And no, not really. Charter township, I always thought if we moved to charter township, it would be beneficial in other areas too. But I always thought then they couldn't be annexed. No, we still can. Because, you know, in the 80s, the old Township Supervisor, they did not even vote on it, and the city took over. I don't know what people know about the city. The city took over where McLaughlin's is down there. That Bear Creek Township extended into the cities up to about 1985, and it was done without a vote. The city took over quite a bit of our township there. I don't know. I racked my brain. I don't know how to stop it. But do you have any ideas on that? I don't have any. But
I don't think I'm going to solve the problem of annexation in this answer, but I think that there are things to keep in mind that we can maybe use as guiding principles. First and foremost, I think Bear Creek Township has a much, much better relationship with the city of Petoskey than it did back then. And that's where those relationships come into play. And I guess I would ask, if the city was considering annexing a property, I would ask why. What would the city suddenly be providing for that property that we aren't doing for cheaper? Why would a property owner want to even leave Bear Creek Township? Now, that situation that you described is such a travesty, and I've heard that from multiple people about underhanded, hidden deals. And frankly, I don't really understand how it could have even happened that way.
was it legal?
It's pretty disgusting behavior for sure. But I think where we are now as a board, as a township, and where the city is now, I can't see something like that happening. And frankly, as a supervisor, if any sort of discussion like that were to come up to me, my immediate reaction would be that this is not a one-person conversation. This is not a supervisor conversation. This is a board conversation, and I think my gut reaction would be a firm no. But I do think that making a decision like that behind the backs of the board is frankly just terrible.
Thank you.
I will ask the similar question. I mean, I think most of my questions have been answered, but similar question of, this being above and beyond a full-time role, and somebody who's willing to step in on the off hours and the weekends and the holidays, and what your approach to that would be.
I think that being a champion of Bear Creek Township, of our parks, of our people, being somebody that the residents feel comfortable calling at any time of day, feel comfortable stopping me in the grocery store, is something that I find quite attractive. I like to serve, I do it in everything that I do. You have my resume, you see what I do for the community at large, you see what I do with my personal life, you've seen what I do for Bear Creek Township. I'm a firm believer of, as I've said before, having some skin in the game. I can certainly see the merits, possibly, especially when it comes to liability of hiring third-party contractors to manage services. Those do come with fiscal costs. No matter how you slice it, it's not a 40-hour work week. I think it would be a disservice to have the mindset of a traditional job in a position that is a public office. I think there is a duty to the residents to be available. I can understand having boundaries. Certainly nobody wants to be woken up at 1 a.m. for a leaking faucet in Jones Landing. But if I wake up at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. and see that voicemail, it would certainly be a priority for either myself or to work with our contractors to have those things fixed, because in Bear Creek Township, we have some pretty incredible services. We have some pretty incredible boards and commissions, and I see how hard everybody else tries, and it makes me want to try even harder every day.
Thank you. Any board member have any other questions?
Well, you kind of said, and I'm gonna ask kind of question, and I asked Tom the same thing. What do you see for the future of this township here?
I see a lot of pressure. I see a lot of people outside of Bear Creek Township wanting to come here. The fact of the matter is that we live in one of the most incredible places in the country. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to bend the knee to developers. It doesn't mean that we have to capitulate. And it doesn't mean that we have to give up what makes Bear Creek Township beautiful, our view sheds, our area, our location, our waterways, our farmland. I don't think that Bear Creek Township should pursue opportunities that would change the nature of the township. I do think that the township owes it to its residents to make sure that there will always be a place for the families that currently live here to stay here. And as those families grow, children grow up, they have to leave their homes and go somewhere. And if they want to live in the community that they have their deep roots tied to, they should be here. I think that the township also benefits a lot from some of the commercial corridors that we have. There are a lot of things that Bear Creek Township can do for its residents that a lot of other townships can't do, and that's because of our commercial corridors. Now, frankly, there's a balance that comes with that. I don't want to see Bear Creek Township become the commercial outlier from the city of Petoskey. But like everything else in life, there's a balance. And I think that every decision that we make for the future of Bear Creek Township should take into consideration how it affects all of the residences in the community.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Do you have any closing remarks, anything else you would like to share with the public or the board?
I just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. Certainly, Denny's retirement came unexpectedly, and I can understand the desire for an election. One of the most amazing things about America is that we have this democratic process. One of the major benefits of having a deputy is it has allowed me to earn these relationships with the people surrounding Bear Creek Township, with the organizations within Bear Creek Township, and with the residents within Bear Creek Township. I believe that there would be a rather seamless transition if I were to step into the role. And in anything that might cause a grain of sand, so to speak, or if there's a situation that arises that I don't have the answer to, because believe me, situations will arise that I don't have the answer to. I believe that I've surrounded myself with such incredible people all around me, from the road commission, to planning and zoning, to the board here, to fellow employees, to residents that are just incredibly smart in their own niche categories, that if there is something that I am not educated on or not properly aware of, that I have the resources to seek out somebody that does know better than me. And I also have the humility to understand when I don't understand something, so that I can seek that out.
Thank you. Are you guys okay?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll bring it back up to the board, to kind of continue on with our process, and open it up for board thoughts here.
As far as if we move, are we gonna move into accept Denny's resignation then? Or you want our thoughts on the process, or?
It's open discussion, so that could be an avenue, either could be an avenue for today's discussion.
Okay, well, I think we should accept Denny's resignation today. And I did a lot of thinking about, and I kind of did some reading on it, and we could ask Joel if I'm correct or not, but we need to appoint a supervisor, because if we went 45 days, and then the county, they have to have a meeting, and then they have to schedule it for an election, we need a supervisor now, because we've got development, we've got this building, we've got all kinds of projects, as Tanya pointed out, we need to continue to, do our projects in that. And I wanna thank Emma, though, for her wonderful guidance, the hard work she's done the past week or two on putting together our meeting agenda for tomorrow night, and for this agenda, and for all the research you've done. You've done a great job, but I don't wanna burn you out. So I would recommend that we do get us, whoever it is, whichever we wanna appoint, I think we should accept Denny's resignation. We need to get a supervisor, so that when people call the hall this week, or the next 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, we're not waiting 5.5 months or if it's less, we need a supervisor now to take over and start helping the board, okay?
Like I said, I would like to see, whenever the letter is accepted, that we are prepared to appoint someone in that same meeting, so that there's not a lapse in coverage, personally. Whether that's today, Wednesday, or another day, the board can decide, but I think those things should happen, in the same meeting. The acceptance of Denny's letter and the appointment of the new person. Tom, do you have any thoughts?
Just jotting notes and so forth, but I think that's the way we're gonna, if we do it today or Wednesday night, accept the resignation letter, if I'm correct, to legal wise, and then we accept that, and then we move forward to appoint a supervisor to move on from, like I said, 3 weeks ago, yesterday, midnight, May 31, today is June 1, if we would have accepted it back then. So we're a day behind, per se. I think that's the right route also. If we feel as a board, the 2 interviews, there again, we can do the resignation, then if we move on to appoint today or Wednesday, or give it time to thought, whatever, that's the first order of business. Is that what you meant? Right?
Yes,
And then move
but
right- and then, but to that point, I was just laying that up. I think we should, I'm okay with what I've got, done my research on our application process, and I think we can move on forward.
I was just advocating that those action items happen in the same meeting.
Right. I'm good with that. Yep.
Okay, would the board like to deliberate on that today? Would you like to wait until Wednesday?
I'll make a motion that we accept Dennis Keiser's resignation dated, well, his letter, I have it here, whatever that letter was.
May
dated
6th, I believe.
May 6th of 2026, we accept that letter of resignation on June 1, 2026 at 2:40 p.m.
We have a motion to accept the current supervisor, Dennis Keiser's letter of resignation from his position as supervisor. Do we have support?
Support.
Support from Joe. Any discussion on the motion?
Madam Chairperson, if I could just suggest that maybe this was implicit with the time given, but that be given immediate effect, the acceptance of the resignation.
Is that
Effective
unacceptable?
immediately.
Tom, that's
Yes.
acceptable to your motion?
You can't hear any of that.
The clarification was made on the motion that the, acceptance of the resignation be effective immediately.
And then we roll call. No roll call.
Roll call.
I think,
Oh,
well, I'll defer, it's not a,
Not a report.
it can be done by voice vote if that's the.
Do a roll.
so we have a motion from Tom and support from Joe to accept the letter of resignation, effective immediately. Any discussion on the motion? I will call the roll. Golding?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Yes for me, and Yearman.
Yes.
Motion passes, so, as of effective immediately, we currently have a vacancy for the township supervisor position, which means this is currently the full board.
We're currently.
This four is currently the full board as of a moment ago. Continuing on with the process, would the board like to continue on, to deliberate and discuss, an appointment today as part of the process? Or would you like to wait on that conversation?
I'm good with appointing today.
Tom?
I'm good deliberation and appointing today, or, talk over our two applications.
Alrighty, well, let's discuss. Who would like to begin?
Well, I would throw my support behind Garrett. I've watched him over the past 3 years. He's really, I don't know how to say, he's become very, I've never been at a meeting that he wasn't professional. He's always prepared. I know he works well with other community leaders and township and city and other governmental and non-governmental organizations. I think we need a supervisor that also understands assessing too. I think that's very important. And Garrett has been a very, very community service oriented, like the recent, doing the trees down at Spring Lake Park. I think he cares about the township. Not that the other applicants didn't, I think they really care too. But at this moment, we need somebody who can step in immediately and fulfill the supervisor. He won't be able to do everything Denny did, but I think he will be very good. I hope.
I can thank both applicants, for their, honesty and upfront on everything here, of course. Taught us 24 years here, or longer, 24 years at her residence. I jot what she knows, good strengths, guidance, and so forth, and her goals for the future, building procedure, professionalism, relationships. Those are all great qualities. Very, very good stuff. New people or vision to move forward. Good stuff. And to Garrett's resume, and interview process. So I read off some of the stuff before, I believe at the May 12th or 6th anyways. Qualifications, leadership, administration, I touched on that. That's kind of put some of my resume question or qualification questions together and so forth, and tried to make it for both applicants. Finances, he's been involved with municipal financing. Legal knowledge, he's been helping us with, setting in our budget talks and stuff, what we've done, so he's been available for that. Communication skills, I believe he's a really good communicator. I've worked with him on the Parks and Rec Committee, we've done different stuff, he communicates really well. Good spokesman at different places. I've talked with Denny about different things where he and Garrett had been at the road commission or wherever, and Garrett's a good listener, he listens. I've even talked to people and Garrett's a listener, he's trying to absorb things. So I've done my research too. Good decision maker. Education, he's got his education experience, he's 4 to 5 years, yeah. We might not have a 30-year veteran, but I believe we're gonna get a person that's dug in hard for the last 5 years and gonna dig for the next 2 if we appoint him today. And then it'll be up to we as taxpayer electors to, if that's the case, or Tana, my niece, either direction we go. But 2 years, because right now we're 24 months away from primary season, and so we'll be right in the mix of it, and then there'll be signs all over out here, or not out here, but around the area possibly. But in November that election will tell. So statutory duties, he's got assessment super is a certification which that you could or not either way. Leadership qualities, I think I touched on leadership qualities there. Administrative oversights, he's got good oversights, financial planning. He's a good representative for us with other townships and to serve as our legal agent. So some of the questions too, he's a good communicator, works hard. He's done above things, and so I guess I'm gonna put my so where do I use
Wagon.
Not wagon, no,
Wagon.
my recommendation is a word for Mr. Muir for this position.
Connie, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think, what Joe and Tom said is, I feel the same. I also feel that, in working with Garrett through these past years, and also with Denny, working with him and Denny and the board, having him be the assessing and assistant supervisor, that Denny saw his worth ethic and helped train him in the important things that needed to be done in the township, and I think that's very important. And I give a lot of credit to Denny to investing that into Garrett, and I think that Garrett will continue reaching out to the communities and the relationships that he has, and also with us as, that work in the office. We've all had a great relationship, and I'm gonna vote for it.
I guess I will bring us home. I want to thank you both for your applications. I think nobody puts themselves in this position unless they 100% care about the township and want its best interest and what that means to them. It's a very difficult and very demanding job, and so for both of you to stick your neck out there is a really big thing, and I thank you.
Correct.
To address the request for a special election, please believe me that no one in this room loves elections as much as I do. I do it for a living, and love what I do, but, and I 100%, appreciate the democratic process, being that I'm so heavily invested in it. However, I see how large a township we are, and I see the daily, hourly need of our residents for a leader. And that's something that we cannot have a vacancy for from now until November. It's something that we have to move forward on. I do believe that our appointed supervisor is going to have to work very hard and very diligently to earn the trust of the public. This person will serve for 2 years, and then at the end of their 2 years will have to make a decision if they would like to run for office in 2028 or not. And so, if it's their intention to continue, this is their opportunity to prove themselves. We also are in a position in that we are your elected officials, and your elected officials and 6,500 other residents' elected officials. And we're very grateful for the trust that you have all put in us, putting us in this position so that when a unexpected vacancy occurs, none of us knew that Denny was going to resign. We can, put pen to paper, put applications out there, and really see what we get back and make a good decision. Looking at what it takes to be the supervisor, we've talked about today, no one is going to be Denny. And no one's expecting this new person to be Denny. 33 years is a really long time to dedicate to the township, and as I said earlier, Denny gave 25/7. He made an extra hour. I certainly appreciate and encourage people to have work-life boundaries, but I also appreciate the fact that we're gonna get a candidate, or I hope we're gonna have a candidate that is really going to invest their time and efforts into building public trust. In considering both applications, the 3 things between applications and our conversations today, the 3 things that I think really move the needle for me would be 1, relationships. Having a candidate who has relationships in the community already to bring forward, relationships and investments, and knows how to build bridges, right? That it's a give and take. Sometimes we need to help our neighbor, and sometimes we need to have them help us. And building that bridge is so important in that when we get into a time of need, we have strength in our community. The second thing that I think is really important in this position would be conflict resolution. Tom asked some great questions today about conflict resolution, and I hear Denny on the phone all the time with residents. I've made the joke several times that I would never want the job because I don't think I could listen and receive that kind of concern from people so often. It's great to receive, I'm happy to receive it as a board member, but hearing it so often can really weigh on your soul and on you as a person. So it takes the right person who's willing and able to receive that and also work through those things with people. So I think it's important to have someone who has very clear and grounded conflict resolution skills. And then lastly, I do think it's really important that we consider the assessment administration portion of this position because the supervisor is the chief assessing officer. I agree that we have put a lot of effort into being a full service township. We really made it clear that we are going to be available to people, that we have office hours. I don't want Bear Creek Township residents to have to drive out of Bear Creek Township to meet with their assessor. And I don't think their assessor should be from somewhere other than Bear Creek Township. It should be someone who is here and knows our intricacies in our communities. So we need this to be a person for the people who is one of the people. And for that reason, I would like to support Garrett Muir in his application. So that is where I'm at. Does anyone else have anything else to share as far as deliberation?
I just want to touch on, so the audience is understood, because we've heard several comments about open and honest transparency. Myself, I have not talked to anybody here. I've made my own decision. I've done research through other avenues with other people and so forth, and got some clarifications and so forth, and I want you to know that there's been total, Tanya asked about discussion of how I come up. I research things, I do that, I try to find the best answers for things. And this, I've done a lot of, looked at all the applications, went through them, highlighted, I even left it where I had it this morning. I had to go back home and get it, good thing I was close by. But went back and gone through it over and over, and I feel the right avenue for our township is this avenue. So that's, I just wanted to touch on that. And, it wasn't a quick decision. I've been contemplating it for about a month here almost. Anyways, that's where I'm at with it.
I would agree, the weight of it has been significant. And I know there's been a lot of thought and prayer certainly on my part, and I think Kenny's been doing some praying too, as far as how to lead us forward, because, you know, I genuinely love what I do and care about this township, and I want us to be led in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, the person we put in the seat, that's a really, really big role to fill, and I don't take it lightly. Does anyone have any other discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Garrett Muir, Bear Creek Township Supervisor, June 1, 2026, 2:56 p.m. And then I guess he'll be duly sworn in at I don't know, we make this appointment and then we swear.
What I would suggest is that if you're gonna make the motion, you make it effective upon him taking the oath of office. And he does have time to do that. That's kind of a discussion, I think, between he and the clerk on when that occurs. And the only reason I say that is one, you know, it could happen immediately, but you have a regularly scheduled meeting Wednesday night, and I don't know what is set aside for that. You've probably got a lot of business to conduct, and whether that occurs before that, and the new supervisor would chair that meeting, or whether it occurs, you know, the day after that, you know, so that's the only reason I would say that. I think that might bear a little bit of consideration, more so between the clerk and the appointee, but to make it effective upon taking the oath of office.
Okay. I'll make that motion effective upon taking oath of office.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
I'll second.
Motion by Tom, second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the roll. Hoffman?
Yes.
Yes for me. Yearman?
Yes.
And Golden? Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you both.
Thank you both.
Garrett.
Kind of wrapping up, with our, you know, we have two here today, but then we do have the other responses. I just wanna confirm the board is comfortable with me reaching out to those respondents to
That'd be
let them
great.
know that we moved
Absolutely.
in another direction. It's okay with everyone?
That'd be great.
I will take care of that. And then I guess the last thing that I think we should discuss today, would just be, looking at how this transition looks in real life. So, you know, there's so many moving parts and pieces. Danny always used to say we have to unwind what we wound up. And so, you know, there was lots of roles that he played with the township. Is there any interest or consideration in the board, with the board, in me drafting up some kind of contract for Denny to help Garrett in the transition for the next month? You know, he's indicating that, he's would like to, you know, help order for us to keep him on staff, you know, we would need to work something out with him. So I don't wanna, I'm one board member, you know, I want direction from the board if you would like me to draft up something for us to consider.
So I believe was you wanted to stay on as, for the month of June as the assessor of record, is that correct, in that letter?
That was his request. I don't know, and Joel, this would probably be more of a question for you. If our new supervisor is a duly certified assessor, does he become the assessor? In which case, Denny's request to stay on, you know, that would still have to happen via contract.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, I think you could do it by motion at some point to continue on in some capacity. But I do think when the new supervisor assumes the office, and my understanding of that resolution is that if he's a duly certified assessor, he would become the assessor of record. There may be some merit to having some transitional period. I don't know what that looks like as far as like the Board of Review coming up in July, whether there's preparations for that or something like that. So I don't know. I think your sense is right, though, that if there's going to be a continuation of any aspect of the employment, that there should be some affirmative action taken to do that. And I don't know whether that's something that you have enough information to do here today, or whether that's something that maybe is for a forthcoming meeting, or have a discussion about what that looks like, or have a discussion with the appointee as to perhaps his preference in that, or what merit it may have. So it seems like there should be a little bit more discussion on that,
Yes.
on what that would look like.
I think that should be a discussion that's, I mean, Denny indicated and I'm going on his feelings, he wanted to be done family-wise, so.
Yeah.
If he wants to offer a conversation to Garrett, that's up to Denny, I think, but if otherwise, it needs more discussion, but, and if Garrett takes office, he might say, I'm good, I'll lean on Denny when I need him. But that was the other thing I was gonna say, there's 4 of us here, an audience has to understand, public, we are here to keep this ship upright, and we're gonna keep it upright. I will be your contact too, anytime, that. So, that's something we should discuss more.
Well, and I'm certainly not looking for any kind of action today. I just know when it comes to a payroll perspective, if, Garrett so chooses and wants to have Denny as some kind of, reference, I want to be able to compensate him for that, and so that would have to be under some kind of board contract or agreement. So I'm certainly not looking for any kind of action today, more so, would you like me, getting direction from the board, would you like me to seek out what that would look like so that I can bring something forward for our next meeting? That would be a conversation between, for Garrett to determine if he wants any help, and then, if he does, what is Denny willing to do? To your point, he may want to be done, and then it's an end of a conversation, but unless, I'm not gonna go that direction unless the board gives me direction to go
I think
there.
we should just set on that for a minute. I would like to think on that one.
I would, be okay with you pursuing it and then getting back to us.
I think we can have a conversation with Denny and just see what he thinks.
Speak up.
Point of order, please.
We can't hear you. Can't hear you, fans and stuff are over
I
there.
said I would suggest that you talk with Denny and see where he is, and with Garrett and see if they, what they need. And we'd be behind them.
Joel, do you think we need any kind of motion today, or do I have enough to at least just information gather?
I think you do. The board hasn't taken any action in this regard. I think it would be helpful to understand the reason for the request from the former supervisor to continue on in that role for a month.
Yeah.
To understand that and to confirm whether that's still a request, and also to get, the input, from the appointee on whether that would be beneficial or not. Report to the board and consider whether there's any action.
And to your point, there may not be. I mean, that the reason for that request may be gone now, so if I find out, I can bring that back to the board, and then the board can go from there, if you're all okay.
And you could have discussion on, whether there's any loose ends with the assessing for July for the board review or anything. Does Garrett need help?
Correct.
Because we're taking away quite a bit of help there, do we need one more month? So have that discussion and get back to us on it. Maybe you
Again,
could
if
put
you
it
guys
on,
are okay with that, I'll just do
just
purely.
put it on Wednesday.
Yeah,
and just-
purely informational gathering, and then
Yeah,
the
that'd be
board
fine.
I can report back to you,
Good.
what I found out, and, what Denny's intentions are, if there's still any unfinished business he has left. Or if, Garrett even needs or wants help, because ultimately that's his decision to make,
Okay.
so. Okay, is there anything
Thank you.
else under, our business items before I go back to public comment?
Good.
Alright, we will open public comment back up.
Denny quit. He resigned. Let him go and let him be done. I think Garrett has been working under him for the last couple of years, and he can handle it. I just want to address a couple things. I had the opportunity to speak with Joe personally a couple weeks ago, about 10 days ago, and I wanted to clarify what I was speaking about nepotism and why. We had a lengthy conversation, so I don't understand why he would say he's confused, because I spoke in detail about that. Thank you, Garrett. What if Nate and his brother both applied to be a trustee at the next election? What if I ran for clerk or treasurer? What if the Flynn boys ran together? Is that a conversation that you want to have after the fact? It's something that should be discussed now and put in place, a policy. The MTA, and I would urge Emma to refer to the MTA, since she sits on the board, to see what they say about nepotism. Because I just sitting here Googled Michigan townships, and let me pull it up real quick if I can stay within my 3 minutes. Michigan Township Association advises townships to adopt strict formalized ethics policies that explicitly prohibit nepotism in the state. Law lacks a universal anti-nepotism statute. They emphasize that officials must avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of impropriety to maintain public trust and prevent ethical dilemmas. So just something for you, that's why I had a discussion with you, Joe, and I pointed that out. Also to the fact that isn't Connie's assistant Emma's sister? I think so. And Connie, do you plan on rerunning? Because the next step would be like to Garrett. He worked under Denny. He comes in. Emma's sister knows the job. She comes in. Now we have 2 people on the board. What else did I want to say? Someone mentioned smaller government. If you're not hearing that, that's what we're all here about. We're all here about our taxpayer money and where it goes, and not trying to go to a charter township. We would like to stay small. And also like to point out the fact that I feel all 4 of you had your decision already made today. I appreciate Tana putting her name in the hat. It takes a big person to step up and to care. And I'd also like to point out the fact that she has been participating for the last 1.5 years. I did not know her. She had not known me, and other than we went to school together, but she has been working for free for the township. And if that didn't show her commitment, I don't know what would. So anyways, thank you.
Nate Hall, again, I would like, before I leave this room today, all of you, all 4 of you owe this room why you do not think that a special election should be had. I understand that Garrett is our new supervisor, you have picked Garrett, he can fill for the end time, but what makes you think that you can wield the sword for 2 years? I just wanted to know why you guys feel that it was unfair to have a special election. Is it the money? Because last I knew, Bear Creek had like over $12 million in investment, so I'm sure we can spend the money. But I just want Joe, Tom, Emma, Connie, if you could just tell us why you think that you guys could make a 2-year appointment and not just, I just wanna know why. And I wanna know, I think we all deserve to know why, just in fairness. Tell us why you think that one person should just be plunked in when it's an elected position. We could have even if it was in 6 months or a year. I understand, but please explain it, because I'm so confused sitting here why you guys are against it. If you guys are all sit up here and you're for the township's gonna vote. And the statutory duties, I know that Garrett's qualifications of following Denny, I totally get that. Do I think Garrett's a good person? Sure. Do I think Ton is? Yes. Mr. Shield, great person. I just don't understand. I need to understand, and I'm hoping that, unlike the sheriff contract, when I ask questions and you guys just never respond to us. I just want to know why, because the statutory duties don't really call for anything, and you guys will have no choice at this next election. Now, yes, if Garrett wins, or if Tana runs, or anybody in this room, but you can't go beyond what the statutory duties are, and every one of you might be replaced up here. It's just an election. You don't know how it's going to turn out. But please explain to me why you thought it was fair to go 2 years. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, I'd echo those previous points. On May 19th, I informed you guys that the residents of Bear Creek Township are not stupid. And Joe made a confused face, others made a perplexed face, but I feel like you're operating like we are. And I've heard other people say that members of this board have described other people in this audience as single issue people who've just stuck around, or they don't know where to direct their frustration. I think you're missing it. The frustration is with what you're doing. We're not confused. And I want to be so clear. Unfortunately, and I say this genuinely, unfortunately, Garrett has received a lot of scrutiny because of the actions of this board. I don't think there's a lot of concern. I mean, I think there's a dominant concern about how this process is playing out that then ends up being directed at Garrett. But it starts with the process. And the process started by Denny allegedly, unexpectedly resigning, which has been said so many times by the members of this board and legal counsel, it's starting to feel like it wasn't unexpected. And the timing of it is extremely suspicious. And when you put these pieces together, a special election would be a good process, but it's not the process being chosen. So I want to be so clear. There's not so much opposition to Garrett, but there's a lot of concern about the process. And I just have not seen a job hire made this quickly. Usually there's some deliberation. In the private or public sector, it does not usually happen this quickly. And I just am really, really confused, like, how you can, with a straight face, have this whole conversation, and Denny this, Denny that, and then at the end, let's see if he wants to stay on. No, he doesn't. He asked to be off. That's why we're here. We're here, like Tom said, to honor Denny's desire for resignation. In what universe would we then ask him to stay on? You know where he can stay on? For 2 more years, like the term was set up to be. But now we're get him off, get someone on, then bring him back on. But we didn't have to get him off in the first place. So I don't like that you all are making it sound like we're the crazy ones, okay? We're not crazy, we're paying attention, it makes you uncomfortable. That's different.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Barb Dietzenbach, Bear Creek Township. I agree with a lot of things. I think the process is where we are struggling. we asked you to post the position on the front page of the website so it could be seen. It was buried under resources under that. That never happened. When I looked at the job posting, it had supervisor duties. You never said in the job posting under supervisor duties that you must be a resident of Bear Creek Township. So when you said 13 of your applications weren't residents, I went, well, I wonder why. You were not transparent, and that was the qualification. So it wasn't just one person misunderstanding it, there's 13 people did not see it because you weren't transparent about it. And then poor Mr. Shields made an error. 2 of your board members were not being transparent and saying, yes, we should give them the benefit of the doubt. We're not gonna give those other people the benefit of the doubt though. I mean, you're not transparent in what you're doing. I think having 2 applicants was a minor thing. You could have had a lot more if you had a much better transparency in doing this. I congratulate you, Garrett, for getting it. You also have my sympathies for getting it, because you know it's gonna be a tough road. And Tana, bless your heart, you would have been wonderful. And I appreciate you stepping up, and I wish more people would have, so you could have had a little broader field to look at. Because it's gonna be 2 years. So I think that's our frustration is you're doing something, but it's really not accomplishing what the residents want. Thank you.
I am going to echo the suspicion. Since I've started coming to all these meetings, and because I had a personal interest with my property, that suspicion has grown and grown and grown over the last 1.5 years. And that is why I have not gone away after a decision was made to my neighborhood. And this suspicion is so affirmed here today. I think that this was planned probably more than a couple of years ago. I'll just allege that. You can deny it if you want, but I cannot shake that feeling. And I will continue to be suspicious, and I will continue, I think, even to see how this plays out for the near future, for things that are coming before the board now with a new supervisor, and just seeing how things are rolling out. And I think the rest of us too here will be continuing to come, and we will be voicing our concerns, our objections, our questions, and hopefully there is more respect for what the residents are coming to these meetings for and asking questions about. Thank you.
I just have one more thing that I wanted to point out. As Connie said that Mr. Shields could have dropped it off in person. I'm looking at the ad, and you can pull it up after you click 5 times to get to it. It says via mail, Dropbox, or via email. Nowhere on there does it say in person.
Oops. Every year, we hire quite a few teenagers and college students, and I have 7 teenagers this year, and not ever do we make a decision this quickly. We think about it for a few days. I was expecting that you all would be thinking about it until June 3rd. So I am surprised, but here we are. Can you hear me? You don't know, I'm not just coming here as Karen had to mention that she started coming because of something that happened to her. I've been coming to your meetings, county meetings, city meetings, since 2008 or 2009. I've seen a lot. This one, these last times have about taken the cake on everything I've seen, and I've seen some awful things happen, awful things. And Garrett, just because you're now taking the place of supervisor doesn't mean you're not gonna hear from me. You've sat in on some of those talks that I had with Denny. They weren't always pleasant, they were back and forth, and you're gonna continue hearing it. He should have been made,
Directed at the board, please, not,
other people are doing whatever, but thank you, Tommy. You could have appointed an interim supervisor and had the same coverage?
I think we could.
No?
No.
I'm not familiar with that.
I read up some on it, I don't know that we could have. The county, it goes 45 days and the county has to call for election, and then by the time it would happen, it probably would be 5 months. And my whole premise is we could not be without a supervisor that long.
But from the time you accepted.
But we could check into it.
For the time you accepted the, all right, go ahead, Joel.
45 days, and the county was.
This is a time for you to offer comments. If you'd like explanations from board members, you're welcome to approach them. They've conducted their business.
That's fine. I think that's what's been talked about here, though, is that we'd like to hear some back and forth, so I think it's
understand, but
fine.
that's
Thank
not
you,
the nature
Joe.
of the meeting.
Thank you. Before anybody else even spoke, I picked this up during the, conversation you guys had about nepotism that's been brought up back and forth. Nepotism, I think in the respect that it has been brought forward, was not just money. It's favors, connections that are being made. And I think that's the kind of nepotism that many of us in here are seeing that we don't appreciate. You have a supervisor now who has connections over at the Planning and Zoning Board. How's that gonna work out? Okay, the other thing I wrote down was about the annexing. And if you look at the old articles, the city annexed 159 acres from the township, and it was not disagreeable, it was agreed with the township. I've got the articles on my website. And it went where Petoskey Pet Gas is now, that was part of it. It was done for the city to have industry. It was for an industrial park, so there was a purpose. The other thing that was mentioned during the meeting was about texting during meetings. And texting, I haven't seen you guys do it, but there's been other meetings I've been to where they are texting, and they're texting with people out in the audience. Not right.
Charlie, you're gonna have to wrap up.
I'll cut it off, I've said enough. I'm sick of it.
Joe, you looked really confused when she mentioned that there's connections with the county planning and zoning.
No, I'm trying to wrap my mind around the annexation of the city.
Okay.
When the supervisor.
I don't need you to engage.
Actually, I shouldn't, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Just public comment,
Yeah.
but when she mentioned confusion.
You've had one public comment period, and if Joel or if that will give you one more 3 minutes, that's all I can offer you.
Fine, it just, Joe seemed so confused when she said connections at the county planning and zoning, and I just want to make sure you understand what she's referring is Garrett's wife now works for Tammy and Laura at the county.
I didn't know that.
Right. But that's why there's concerns about nepotism being brought up, is if you have Emma's sister working for Connie, Garrett's wife working for Tammy and Laura, the Wilkums down the street from Emma, Denny blaming others for why it happens to protect Emma, Emma not recusing herself from a case that's her neighbor. That's why it starts to seem like there's actions being made to curry favors with others. Whether or not there's money involved, it starts to seem like a lot of pieces of the puzzle are a little too interconnected. And that's part of our concern, is that maybe some decisions are being made outside of the court of public opinion. When a case that affects the clerk is on record with the supervisor assuring people ahead of the meeting that it won't even get to a hearing, that starts to sound suspicious. And then when it gets to a hearing and it doesn't go the way they want, and they blame others, that starts to sound suspicious. When they pre-authorize funding to challenge a decision before the decision has been made, that starts to sound suspicious. So it is confusing, but that's why we're here.
Any other public comment to be brought before the board?
First, thank you, and to everybody in the crowd and all the people that couldn't make it. I know I've got a lot of respect to earn from a lot of people. I hope that I can do that. I'm happy to meet with, anybody at any point, make myself available. I've made myself available my entire career. I guess just to air out my wife, it doesn't really seem pertinent, but I can kind of see what Brian is saying, but just to clarify, 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, it was a while ago, the Planning and Zoning Department posted a position for administrative assistants over there. Another applicant, Allie applied, another applicant received the job. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. Months later, they posted the position again. Allie applied again, there was an interview process. So, I understand, I guess, what Brian is saying, but it was a very open process to the point where she didn't even receive the job initially. So if anybody has any concerns, I'd be happy to talk to them, but I just want the board to be fully aware of the situation. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Public comments?
Can I say one more thing, just
Very briefly, gotta keep it within the 3 minutes.
this has to do with the transparency part of the board. Please consider when you have the right, and the person who is running the meeting has the right to run the meeting, to have back and forth and to allow it, if you want. I think there's times when things are said or asked, you need to reply. You don't have to, but it sure would be a whole lot better for the board, for the public, for the voters, for everybody. Consider it. Make that one of your things, Garrett, to work. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk to him. Supervisor can make that as part of what would be better for our township. Become a part of the community. Become a part of the people you're representing.
Public comment. Any other public comments to be brought before the board?
I would just like to say thank you to the board for entertaining the special election idea. Proud of you guys.
Anybody else? Alright, hearing no other public comments, I will bring it back to the board. Is there any other business to be brought before the board?
I got something to say. I like the idea, we can look at that, of doing interaction. We usually don't speak on public comment, but I've jotted some notes to set the word straight here. We got Denny's resignation May the 6th, I guess it was. I personally was caught totally off guard. I don't know if there was any thought. He never, ever, ever mentioned to me he was gonna be done in this term. He said end of his term. always to me. So I totally off guard, I sat right over there. Tears came to my eyes. But with that being said, there's a lot of conflict in here. We shouldn't do that as a community. We should be together, and I understand we need to talk. But the part, Nate, I'll address the special election, we're up 45 days out. This is my opinion, not anybody else's. But we have a lot on our table. I'll address the special meetings, why we've had 12, because we are a busy, busy township. We've got multiple things going in. Everybody's schedule's trying to interact and get everything on the same page. Somebody's got a doctor's appointment, or somebody's got a meeting, or whatever. We are trying our best to fit to the community here, very much so. I've missed 2 baseball games. I got a father-in-law in ICU in the hospital right now. So I am here to represent you people. And it just kind of, I don't know where I'm going with this, but kind of is like upsetting that you think we are putting some suspicious thing together. I am not that type of person. I don't believe anybody else is here. So that's why, part of the reason of 45 days, in my opinion, let's move forward. We put it out there, applicants, maybe not everything was totally perfect. I'm not a web page designer, I don't know on that stuff, but we were gonna go 7 days. If you recall, we pushed it out to 2 weeks, so we had plenty of time to get the word out. You folks asked us that, so we went 2 weeks. Emma made it the 27th. We had 5 days to look at all this. We all looked at this, I did. So it's like, we didn't make haphazard decisions. And with that point, Ryan, I understand maybe you're upset with that. I get that, but we tried to make the best decisions we could to move this township forward.
Can't we do November next year? If 45 days is too short, Tom, why don't we just push a year?
Excuse me, this is public comment is open.
Well, Tom's addressing me, Emma, so I think that we're adults here in this room. I think we can talk. This is the problem, Emma.
Public comment. So, Joel, I just
I'm not gonna
wanna
interact.
be clear where we're at in the agenda, because, typically I don't moderate meetings, so I'm gonna lean on you here as our township attorney. We've ended public comment and we're at other business. So at this point, the public cannot respond. Is that correct?
That's correct, and I would also encourage your board members to address you as the chairperson as well. You are the moderator of the meeting. I understand the desire to have it out, but that's not the format of the meeting.
So board members, for Joel's recommendation or request, if you have anything, please run it through me as the moderator. Tom, go ahead.
So I was just, in my comments, and I'm just addressing our taxpayers, our constituents, and trying to be transparent. I think we all are, if I'm still in order. So, jot down several notes, but Nate, feel free to call me anytime. Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Anytime. I've told people that. Carla's called me. I've talked with Carla. I appreciate your comments. Make sure I get everything I jotted down there. I don't know. I kinda got off track, but we try our hardest to do the right thing up here. And lots of meetings, I get that. But that's what I ran, ran for, and I knew it going into it, so it's on me, no problem, I can do it. But we just all need to come together here. And if anybody's got anything, my phone number's out there, my email, contact me. I will call you back. I probably had some other notes, but hopefully I addressed some concerns, but feel free to call me.
So, Madam Chairman, Denny shocked me, absolutely shocked me. I had no clue that he was gonna turn his resignation at that meeting. No clue whatsoever. Totally. I could not have, I would have never thought that would happen. The other thing would be, all the meetings we've had, there's been so much going on with Spring Lake Park and this building and stuff. To try to do it at the regular once a month Wednesday night meeting, we've been here 2.5 hours, guys. That would put us into like 5 hours on Wednesday nights. And meetings are not productive much more than 2.5 hours. People get tired, it doesn't work out, it's no good whatsoever. That's why we have tried to have special meetings so we can work on stuff together as a board with the public. And I will thank the public, all you guys. You called me out on stuff, I've learned stuff, I've done research, I've been reading up on MTA, what the legal stuff is. I think I've learned a lot. That's been the positive thing. The only thing I really would hope everybody in the future consider trying to be a little nicer to your neighbors, to the board. We need to all work together, but just be considerate of your neighbor. That's all.
And with that being said, Brian and I sat on the planning commission together, we don't.
No, we.
Please
Oh,
direct your
I'm sorry,
comments.
We have had disagreements, but, and people in the audience, we're all friends. At the end of the day, we're all friends, and I wanna be it that way, so that's where I'm at with it, you know. We don't much agree to disagree. So, at the end of the day, we're still friends and move on, so that's what you said. Thanks, Joel, for keeping that track, sorry.
Any other business to be brought before the board? Joel, thank you for coming. Thank you all public for coming, and with that, 3:35, we are adjourned.
Thank you.